Hey, I just wanted to thank everyone who watched my first video and contributed to the discussion in the comments section. I'm actually super surprised at how many people have actually watched this video. My situation is a bit shitty, but we've got to remember that there are a lot worse things happening in this world at the moment, and my problem is pretty minor in the scheme of things. Nevertheless, I think consumer rights in Australia are an important topic that needs highlighting. We pay a lot in taxes, and if you watch this video through, you'll see that about 15% of the price I paid for the car went in government taxes in one form or another, almost $8,000. With over 1 million cars sold in Australia each year, this amounts to about $10 billion on the back of an envelope style of calculation. Surely the various state and federal governments could put some of this money back into an organisation that can represent Australian motoring consumers on a direct level to help resolve disputes with automakers. Help level the playing field a bit. Also, just a quick update on the car. I have the car back now from the dealership, and I've got my garage trying to source the engine back pressure valve so that I can fit it to the car for the new owner. Unfortunately, the guy who sources the parts at the garage is away in the UK at the moment, attending a funeral, so it's going to delay everything a little bit. If you're interested in knowing what happened when I tried to sell the car back to the GWM dealership here in WA, follow along and keep watching the video now. Hello and welcome to all. You joined me this morning on an excursion to discover if I can sell my brand new 2025 Tank 300 diesel back to the GWM dealer network here in WA, which is my home state. The car has 139 kilometres on the clock, about 32 kilometres of which the dealers put on themselves. If you want to know why I want to sell the car and why I would never buy another GWM product, you'll have to do a quick catch up on the first video I made, and then I'll put out another video giving my reasons in detail. The car is currently with the service department of the dealer from which I bought the car, and shockingly it's been there for a bit over 3 weeks. So I'll see you down the road when I get to the first dealership on the list I've got. Okay, I've just arrived, and this is the closest dealership to the second closest dealership to my house. Now, when I get in there, I suppose, they're going to ask me why I want to sell the car, given that it's brand new. So I'm just going to tell them the truth, that, I want out, and, I just want to know whether they want to buy the car and what price, they would be prepared to pay. And if they ask me about the issues with the car, then I'll just be frank and give them like a full disclosure within the confines of the dispute that I'm currently having with the dealers that I bought the car from as of the recording of this video, sort of thing. And that's basically it. So I'll see you when I get back.
A few moments later.
Okay, that was the first dealer. Got to say, it didn't go very well. First of all, he said he doesn't make offers, so what did I want for the car? And I said, well, I don't know. This is what I paid. I've got no idea. And he goes, then I sort of pushed him a little bit, and he essentially said that I'd probably lose 10 to 12,000, but he can't make me an offer. And then I said, oh, all right, well, what if I only lost 8,000? Would you consider that? And he said, yeah, I'd look at that. And pretty much that's where conversation ended with a fair degree of hostility on his part. In any case, there's probably another 8 dealers that are in the broader metropolitan area of Perth. And look, I can't be going through this process for, talking to you guys for everyone. So what I'll do is and it'll probably take more than a day to go and see them. So what I'll do is just, when it's all done, I'll go back more comfortable abodes and give you a summary of, what the outcomes were. So I'll see you back in a more comfortable place. Well, as you can see, I'm not yet back at my comfortable abode, but I thought I'd give you a little update. I'm still going today, it's the afternoon. I visited 4 dealerships, GWM dealerships today, and actually, contrary to the first experience I had, which was incredibly hostile, the other 3 experiences have been pretty good. Really professional and nice people that I've spoken to. Not that it'll help very much on the price I might get for the car, but at least a bit of a breath of fresh air in terms of, humanity, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I'll update you all later, give you all the facts and figures, and quite a few interesting things I've learned today. So I'll see you later.
1 week later.
Hey, as you can see, I'm home. Now, once again, excuse me for the quality of this video and for using notes to tell my story. My neurons struggle to fire quite as fast as they used to, and I've also managed to catch a lurgy, which isn't helping. Remember that novel virus from a few years back? It just keeps on giving around Perth at the moment. It's about a week since you saw me last, and my situation with the car and GWM has evolved somewhat quickly since you last saw me. Since this time, I've consulted with a law firm on St George's Terrace and have decided it makes no financial sense to continue challenging the dealer and GWM over the sounds the car was making. As I plan to try and sell the car and don't want to put any more kilometres on it, I've made arrangements with a tow truck driver I know to pick it up tomorrow from the dealership's workshops, where it has been there for around 4 weeks. If you're new to my story, the sounds coming from the car occurred on my second day of ownership, and if you want to know more, watch my first video in this series. What you probably want to know if you're here now is how did I go trying to sell the car back to the GWM dealership network in WA? Well, you last caught up with me driving home from the first day in my attempt to discover whether or not GWM dealers would even buy my car back, and if so, for how much. I visited 4 dealerships that day. As it turned out, the next day I only visited 1 more dealership because the other dealers were too far away from my house and not worth the bother, as I'd basically already got the answers I was looking for. So let me tell you what happened. Well, you remember at the first dealership I visited, the guy told me that he doesn't make offers. Well, this is silly to the extreme, given he was introduced to me by a salesman as the buyer for the dealership. How could he ever buy a car but not through an offer and acceptance process? In any case, let's not waste time on his nonsense. What came out of that conversation was that I would lose between $8,000 and $12,000 selling the car to him. The next dealership was larger, and I walked into a pretty big foyer area. A couple of salesmen were busy with a client at a corner table, so I stand near the middle of the room for a while, and then a guy comes out of one of the offices and asks me if I'm being helped. I proceed to let him know why I was there, and he walks me further into the building, and we sit down on a couch at the back where I fill him in on the situation with the car. The guy's polite, respectful, professional all through our discussions, and then Once briefed, he goes to talk to his manager and comes back with an indicative offer of $43,000. I thank him and ask him if that is his best price, to which he replies yes. I let him know I'll consider it and that I was going around to a few dealers that day. I was also impressed with the professionalism of this guy because he actually bothered to inform me before I left that I had rights under consumer law if the car was faulty. Well, as I've discovered, those consumer law rights are hollow in any practical sense. Look at my situation. I've already paid a lawyer $495 per hour for a consultation. His advice was to get an expert report. I'm not sure how much that would cost. If the expert report found the part to be faulty, as I suspect it is, and if I take the report to GWM and they revert to their stated findings from their Chinese head office technical department, I'll be back down at the law offices paying lawyers $495 an hour for more consultations. Just not worth it. Okay, let's go back to what happened that day. The next dealership was smaller and I only spent a short time there. The guy I dealt with asked about the situation with the car, took a copy of my original purchase agreement, gave me his card and said he'd get back to me. At the time of recording this video, I haven't heard back from this particular person. I could sense he wasn't interested in getting embroiled with me or the car. The last dealership was also pretty big, stocking quite a few makes of cars, including GWM. I walked through the lot and walked in through these doors where I could see GWM advertising and proceeded to stand near the middle of the room like before. Eventually a guy sitting at a desk notices and comes up to me. As I explain the reason why I'm there, he walks me through the offices towards the back of the building and asks me to wait while he fetches the guy responsible for buying cars. He comes back alone and tells me I need to wait for a little while, and during this time I spark up a conversation with the guy who seems really nice and sympathetic to my cause. Eventually the buyer shows up and I'm led out of the office to a separate building behind the lot. The guy's super nice and very transparent. In his office he opens a page on his computer that shows a live market for what I'm told are used tank Ultra 300 diesels in WA. The page showed the colour of each car, seller codes, the EGC for each car, which is the price of the car excluding government charges, the DAP, which is the drive-away price. The buyer around this point told me that they only offer 30% on the value of accessories on used cars they buy. The webpage also showed how many price changes were recorded for each car and how long ago those price changes came into effect. The final column showed the date of delisting. From my quick scan of the page, it looked like most of the cars on the list were delisted, meaning that they had been sold or had been removed from sale. I could only see 3 cars on the first page of the list that were still active, i.e. for sale. One was black and had 300 kilometres on the clock with a DAP of 50,990. Another was the same colour as mine, grey, and had 20 kilometres on the clock with a DAP of 51,990. And the last car that I could see on the list was orange with 10 kilometres on the clock and a DAP of $52,120. While going through all this stuff with a guy, I realised that I wasn't actually dealing with a main dealership. It was a separate car buying business attached to the dealership. The guy basically told me that if he bought the car from me, it would be sold from the lot in the main dealership, but they charged his company a thing called a load, which he said would be $2,800 to have it out in the lot out the front. Eventually he gets up and takes my original purchase agreement and goes to speak to someone in the dealership and comes back with an indicative offer of $43,000, the same as the previous offer I got, and basically tells me that his company will put the full amount into my account without seeing the car as long as I have all the right paperwork. I could bring the car in once the money had cleared. I didn't ask to look at the actual contract I would have needed to sign, but it seemed like a very quick and easy way to sell the car if I really just want it out of my life as fast as possible. I asked him if he could do any better with his offer, and he said no, so I left and headed home. The next day I went to the next closest dealership to my house. I walked in and was met by a salesman who had been sitting at a desk near the front of the dealership. Once he learnt what I wanted, he shows me to the sales manager's office at the back of the showroom, and I get invited to sit down. The manager is nice and seems genuine, a salt of the earth type of guy. He takes an immediate interest in my situation and the issue I have with the car, which seems to animate him into action. I won't go into the details here, but his comments to me and the actions he took that day completely changed my perspective on the discussions I've been having with my dealer and GWM. This person appeared willing to advocate on my behalf and offered to ring the sales manager at my dealership. But unfortunately, as fate would have it, it was too late at that stage because my dealer and GWM had coincidentally already sent emails the same day, which I hadn't yet seen, which effectively terminated all discussions and instructed me to return the loan car they had lent me and collect my car. I never completed discussions with him that led to an offer for the car, but during my discussions, he also indicated I'd be losing about $10,000 selling it back to a dealer. So let's quickly run through the numbers and see where this all leaves me. I'll put up on the screen now the details of purchase for my Tank 300 diesel. You can see the car's price is listed at $43,357.97, which is not a lot more than the indicative offers I got. When I bought the car, I paid the cost of insurance, registration, stamp duty and GST. If we subtract those costs, which total $8,132.05 from the sale price of the car, which was $52,734, and ignore the value of the accessories I bought, the amount left over is the same as the price listed for the car, $43,357.97. Clearly the dealer doesn't pay this price for the car, or they'll make no money on the sale other than whatever percentage they make selling accessories. Also, from my understanding, dealers are obliged to charge GST on the sale of a used car, so I can't see how it makes sense for them to buy the car at $43,000. The margin for them on the resale after GST and stamp duty would be really small. Can any of you out there explain why they would offer me $43,000? It seems to make little sense from the numbers I've just run. On the other hand, if I sell the car privately, the buyer of the car gets the benefit of the unused portion of the insurance and registration, and there is no GST payable on the private sale by the buyer. With a private sale, I have the difference of the GST and the remaining insurance and registration to work with in my sale price. So starting from the indicative price offered by the dealers for my used car of $43,000, which is only a few $100s less than the listed price of the new car, I'll add an amount representing the GST that the dealers would be forced to add if they sold this car again. And for simplicity, I'll just use the same GST amount I paid and pro-rata the insurance and rego at 5/6, which gets me to $47,870 in round figures. Now, if I discount the accessories I paid for, which are rubber mats throughout the car and the tow bar assembly and wiring harness, and discount them by 70%, the same as the used car buyer said was a typical discount, I get a sale price of $49,120 before stamp duty that a buyer will need to pay on the transfer of their car. The WA Department of Transport stamp duty calculator indicates a duty of
$3,128.90 is payable on this amount. Sorry for all the maths, but when you add in the stamp duty, you end up with an equivalent drive-away price for this private sale of $52,249, which is only $485 less than I paid for the car, and pretty much in line with the DAP price of the orange car with 10 kilometres on the clock that I saw on the car buyer's database. This price would make my car the most expensive car on the database if I advertise it at $49,120. I also have the problem of what do I disclose to prospective buyers about why I'm selling the car. GWM claim that the part in dispute is operating normally, but it is my belief that it is not. It might be functioning, but I believe it is abnormally loud in its operation. How much is that worth to the prospective buyer as a discount in the price of the car? Let me know what you think. Many of you might be thinking, if you watched this video, my previous video, why did you just keep the car? I'll explain why I'm not keeping the car in another video. But for now, how much should I discount the car from $49,120 so as to give the buyer a fair deal? Do you think I should see how much the defective part actually costs and how much it would cost to fit? That could be a fair discount considering the circumstances. Let me know what you think and what you would do.
Just standing up for my rights as a consumer.